Joining me right now, NBC Sports California's own, and always have a love fest with him because I'm such a huge fan of his and his work. And there's a couple of reasons here, as I do a way too long, way too loving intro for Brody Brazil, but that's fine. Number one, YouTube viewers. Look at me and look at where I'm at right now. Brody knows where I'm going. We are in a multi-million-dollar studio, a professional studio with some of the best engineers in the world. Look at me and I can't do anything about me. Look at my background. Look at our camera quality. Look at that. Brody is at his house right now. And look at Brody. Oh, look at the flex with the multi-angle camera, the plant in the background, real or fake, don't care.
It's fake.
Fake. The lighting, the little bars going up and down on the digital thingy dingy that I would have no idea and probably burn the house down. It's a wonderful presentation, and we're so happy to finally bring him in. And I won't fill the whole interview kissing all over him. Good morning, Brody.
We can keep that going as long as you want. By the way, the Macklin Celebrini reaction. So I recorded all of that here in the home studio. I told my wife, I need to go outside for the next 30 minutes. The draft show's on. I decided I'll record all of this, and if it goes well, I'll release it. If Chicago got that number 1 pick and the Sharks had number 2, you never, ever, ever would have seen my reaction. It would have included a lot of F words.
So it's funny you say that, because one of my favorite things to watch on YouTube right now, these rabbit holes, are people reacting to the first time they heard Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us. And I know. And it's like so super entertaining. I don't understand any of it. I just love watching these people emote. And I would make the argument, Brody, although I'm so glad that your Sharks got the number 1 pick. They deserve it. And that sounds weird because they were bad, but they do deserve the pick.
No, they deserve the luck. They deserve the consolation. By the way, was that the diss track you were just talking about? That was the diss track on Drake, Not Like Us? Okay.
Yes,
just
that was
catching up.
One of the diss tracks, but yes. I would argue that had Chicago gotten that number 1 pick, it might have been as good, if not even better viewing.
It would have sparked controversy and conspiracy theories because they just got Connor Bedard last year. They leapfrogged the Columbus Blue Jackets and Anaheim Ducks last year. They were the 3rd overall best chance to get number 1. Sharks were 4th right behind them. Chicago leapfrogged 2 last year. If they did it again, I think enough people would have said, all right, NHL, you're favoring an Original 6 team. They would have raised the flag on it. I'm just glad we don't have to go down that road. And you know what? The Sharks can benefit from this.
And everything you just said is 100% true. I was speaking to, it would have been better viewing watching you melt down.
Oh, see all this stuff right here? It would have been flipped upside down. So I didn't destroy my own home studio thanks to the NHL lottery draft. Yeah.
Now, we have a lot to talk about, but I want to do the same thing to you that I hijacked the beginning. I was recently on your show, and I hijacked the beginning the same way I'm going to do right now. There's a lot of people watching right now that are interested not just in podcasts, but video casting. Also, want to do something from home and all that. I know you're not going to go into the whole thing, and I believe you have a video breaking this down, but really, Brody, it is a beautiful setup you have. It's honestly one of my favorite setups. It's just so damn clean. Your voice quality is great. And as a broadcast nerd, I nerd out over this stuff. This take you, I would assume, a long time to finally get the way you wanted it?
Yeah, it wasn't done overnight. I mean, I started this in 2018. I realized that I had this spot at the house that would be perfect for it. And it started small. If you watch some of the original videos I ever did here, they looked completely different. I think this obviously it's been tuned up over time. I've invested in it over time. Several layers of equipment here are 3 different versions than it used to be, newer versions. So I've continued to upgrade. I just think in this day and age of content creation, and everybody's got a nice studio where they work like we do at NBC Sports, but I wanted to have something similar and equally professional for when I did things on my own at home. I didn't want to lower the production value. And the other thing is, not a lot of people in my job have the experience of being behind the camera. I mean, this is how I got into television, lighting and cameras and audio. So I was able to kind of use that skill and those skills that I've always had that I didn't ever let go away. So people don't expect that I even did all this, but I did all this because I just think it matters. And you know what? I think I'm willing to help other broadcasters. They've reached out. How can I do the same thing? I actually, for no no other reason than I just want to help. I really tried to do that for other people too, because I do think it is important.
It was funny. If anybody's ever experienced meeting a friend somewhere and let's say they're driving something super cool, like the Tesla P100 we were talking about earlier, or a Lambo or a Ferrari or something really awesome. And then you pull up and you're comfortable in your own skin, but you pull up in your, let's just say your mid-size vehicle that gets good gas mileage and has 4 doors and gets you from point A to point B. It was a little bit about, it's a little how I felt going on with Brody with my setup at home. But how much, Brody, or if any, did the whole COVID experience have with maybe just the passion of doing that, but also the ability to kind of set things up because you had to work from home like a lot of us?
When we first realized that everything was going to be done from home that summer, people said, well, you were like completely prepared for this. You knew this was coming. I'm like, of course I did not know this was coming. But no, it was the perfect setup. And I will say that the year 2020 completely accelerated the home studio. So in reality, was I doing this well before 2020? Yes. But even the technology and stuff I've implemented here has totally advanced just because of that year. And even honestly, in 21 and 22 and 23 and 24, like I said, I continued to upgrade this to make it more versatile and more capable, so that here I am on your show, looking and sounding as I'm trying to. I know a lot of people come on your show and it's great. Like, you get them in the car, you get them on their phone, and maybe the audio is okay, and you'll take it because you want them as a guest. Somebody said it perfectly. This is like showing up in a suit and tie. When you've got your own home studio, it's the new suit and tie. And so that's kind of how I take it.
Brody Brazil, NBC Sports California, as I completely nerd out before we get to the meat.
Get it out of your system.
I know. I had to. I did it on your show. I got to do it on mine. Now, Brody, one of the reasons I am a big fan of yours, though, is that I see commonalities. You wear your heart on your sleeve. You're very much passionate about your teams, and we're going to talk about the A's obviously here in a second. But I want to ask you about the Sharks. You not only cover the team, but you are a passionate fan. You don't hide that. Hockey is my blind spot. My father grew up on the East Coast playing hockey. It kills him every single time we talk about hockey, and he just can't. It breaks his heart that I'm not into it. Of course, I root for the Sharks if they're doing something just because of the Northern California roots, but I don't know much other than maybe 20 hockey players I could probably name. What is it about the sport that really got under your skin?
So I was, 10, 11, 12 years old when the Sharks came around, and their debut caught people's attention here in the Bay Area, and they were at the Cow Palace, and what's this NHL thing? And people knew, but I think it's, and I'm saying this as a television hockey broadcaster, if you're just trying to get into the game by watching it on TV, you will never appreciate it. You need you need to go to the game. You need to see the speed and the physicality and what the camera can't see. Like when the play's on one end of the ice, go take a look with your peripheral vision and watch what's happening on the bench and the next trio of forwards that's ready to hop over the wall and do an instant line change. There are so many things about hockey that that sport has, others don't. It is a little bit unique. It is a little bit specialized in the sense that, if you're familiar with football and basketball and baseball, there are some things in hockey you're like, wait, 2 halftimes? No, it's 2 intermissions. But the point is it's a unique flavor of sport. It was something different for me. I got hooked at that early age. If it wasn't for the Sharks, I wouldn't be a fan. This is a non-traditional hockey market. So that's how I got hooked. Again, I think it just meshes a lot of good things together. And by the way, working with the players and getting to know them, maybe it's because of their paycheck is a lot less than a lot of the other sports. They're just so down to earth. The way they were raised, the fact that it took a lot of commitment by family members and friends to get them in those positions, to play in youth tournaments, to travel, to do all that stuff. So they are good, down-to-earth people, and that exists in all sports, but I think the volume of that in hockey is just a little bit higher.
Brody, I'm a Kings guy, I'm an NBA guy. I've always wondered, and I'm curious as to what your take would be. 2 things I'd love to see experimented with in the NBA they could steal from hockey. Number 1, I always wondered if actual real-time substitutions could work in the NBA. I mean, why not? You just bring people on. The guy can come on as soon as right in the middle of a fast break, a play, sub in, sub out. And the other one would be technical foul. It's 4-on-5 for 60 seconds.
I think in basketball, you could do so much damage, 5-on-4 on a basketball power play. Whereas in hockey, you still have a goalie defending the scoring area. In basketball, it's just somebody's going to be wide open. I would also say about the line change aspect, I don't see why it couldn't work. The only thing you'd have to do is take the benches from the ends, like from the baselines. You'd have to put them closer to center court because it wouldn't be fair if you were on the other side, 48 feet away, whatever, from the bench. That's a long way to run and do that change. So.
I also, and Brody's a great follow on Twitter as well. And in following you, have seen, pictures of you, your family, in A's gear. Again, emotions on sleeve with the whole A's thing. When you and I spoke on your show, I had made it clear that I'm sure I'm in the minority, but, and I understand, I don't judge people in Sacramento for being excited for the A's to come here. I completely get it. We talked that through on your program. Yeah. But it just seems a little dirty to me. It seems a little off. I'm not a fan of it. And part of the reason, Brody, is that maybe I am mistakenly and misguidedly of the opinion that there is still hope in Oakland, not with Fisher in Oakland, but with Oakland and a new owner. And part of the reason I have that belief, Brody, and no one is more of an expert on this than you and your colleague Casey Pratt, who've done just such wonderful coverage. When the Maloofs, and we talked again about this on your program, when the Maloofs were trying to move Sacramento, whether it was Virginia Beach, Anaheim, Las Vegas, Seattle, etc., the team was never for sale. They were not going to sell the team. And finally, after they were blocked for the fourth time, I think, to Seattle, they threw their hands up. Now, they were in a financial issue, and John Fisher is not. But I just get the feeling that if he's blocked enough and he is and everything falls through, that at some point he's going to look around and see a Vivek Ranadive and see a Joe Lacob and see, from what I understand from you guys, other people that are waiting in the wings unknown that would step up and say, I'm done with this. I'm going to make a ton of money and let somebody else be a hero. Am I you know this better than anyone, Brody. Am I off base there? Honestly.
I think there's a lot of unknowns here. This is the A's starting to cross a bridge that isn't built out to the other side yet. The other side is what everybody expects to be Las Vegas.
Yeah.
But this is so similar as we just watched the Arizona Coyotes go to a temporary home. And we go back to hockey talk here for a second.
Sure.
They thought they were going to get a new building in Arizona, so they went to Mullet Arena, but the new building wasn't even approved or planned out or paid for yet. And so after just 2 years at that temporary spot, the NHL found out about Utah, which I'm about to get to in just a second, and Utah had just approved $900 million to upgrade Delta Center or build something new in Salt Lake City. So literally 7 days after that was approved, Bettman and Bill Daley go out to Arizona and tell Alex Murillo, we need you to sell this team to us. We need you to get out of this. We'll promise you giving you a team back if you can do a new building, but we need to get you out of here right now because the temporary thing is not working. I say all that to establish that as much as I can say this from the Bay Area and the Oakland perspective, and you're saying this from the Sacramento perspective, we know there's Las Vegans out there who are saying, wait, this is all lined up and promised. Let me throw another wrench into the engine here. Yeah. Salt Lake City right now, state of Utah, I should say, has $900 million approved for a baseball team and a new stadium if they can get one. And the same way that they just lured the Coyotes to become the Utah Yetis, I think is what they're going to be called.
Oh, wow.
That would be my guess. The same way they just lured the NHL there, this is a different group. There's the Larry H. Miller group, separate from the Smith group, which owns the Jazz and now owns the NHL team. Like, they've got the blueprint of taking a sports team and saying, we want expansion, but we'll take any team that's ready, and we can literally, they have a shovel-ready site at this state fair park in Utah. So I don't mean to, like, deflect from your question, but I think what we all need to consider is this isn't just Sac, and this isn't just the Bay, and this isn't just Vegas. Like, Utah is still out there as well, too. And look, this is a complicated issue. Even getting to Las Vegas still is a complicated issue. I don't know that all the private financials have been sorted out. The situation with Bally's, and this is separate even from the A's. Like, what they're trying to do is just flat out difficult. It's not unprecedented, but it only happens once every 50 years in baseball. There is no blueprint for this. Bally's is in financial issues, and they were supposed to be part of this land development and partnership and the other 26 acres. They all of a sudden don't know what they're going to do with it. So my point is here, as much as we think we know right now what the options are, I wouldn't even be surprised if one more curveball came in this or more.
So that's interesting, Brody. And you know, one of the things that drives me nuts is I oftentimes will hear people say, well, they're going to Sacramento. It's not as bad as the other places. Suck it up, A's fans. And again, that would be like if the Kings were moving to Fresno or the Bay Area or something, I'd be pissed off about that too. But based on what you're saying, it sounds like you've got Las Vegas, you've got shovel-ready Salt Lake, you've got Vivek and the 9/10 possession law coming up in Sacramento for 3 years, perhaps more. And I don't know where Oakland falls on that list, but it sounds like it might be as low or lower than any of those three. So is there a potential situation where A's fans, including yourself, would say, okay, I have accepted that the A's are not coming or not staying in Oakland, whether that's now or years from now. I've accepted this. I now realize there's no way that's going to happen. They're going to go to Vegas, they're going to go to Salt Lake, or they're going to go to Sacramento. Would there be a point where there'd be A's fans saying, okay, if you're asking me to pick the best of all evils, obviously they're accessible in Sacramento, or would you not want that because then that might make it more difficult for A's expansion? I'm just curious as to you as a diehard fan what you would think.
I would never want to speak for everybody, but
sure,
I do think, to your point, there are some, and there are some listening to us right now who are in Vacaville, who are in that kind of middle ground, somewhere off 80. And to them, it's like, well, it's just the same distance either way. So to that point, yeah, I think there is that idea that, hey, they are still a drive away. Obviously, to a very large section of fans and a cross section of fans, they're already done with this, the true Oakland fans. And so I guess, I would just say this about the Sacramento side of it. My perspective on it is, well, two things. The Sacramento side, I hope that attachment doesn't happen too quickly here because of the unknowns I just mentioned. And because, there is a small chance they could ever end up back in Oakland, but there's a bigger chance that they end up in either Las Vegas or, like I said before, Salt Lake City. And if this were a 3-week thing or a 3-month thing, you could mentally wrap your head around that as a Sacramentan and say, well, this is temporary. I get it. This is temporary. Here's the end date. As of right now, I mean, technically there's an end date, but a lot of people are saying even if the Las Vegas Stadium happens, 2028 is a best case scenario, and the price that it would come at is a best case scenario, so it could drag on even longer. There's no end date for Sacramento. So in your mind, how could you not think of it as a permanent thing? And I'll say Rayleigh Field. I'm sorry to Sutter Health, but I'm just old school. But when you go out there, you watch a couple games, I can see how Sacramentans are going to get hooked on, hey, we've got this. This is our thing. And not really understanding that it's going away. It's like dating somebody maybe when you were in college and you knew that they were, or in high school, and you knew they were going to go to a different college, but you just weren't ready to wrap your brain around the fact that after graduation, you're both going separate ways. So there's that part of it. I would say from the Oakland side of it, there are so many people that either don't fully understand that this is it, or that they do understand that, and they're just distracted by this baseball season. All of the news that came out in the offseason, it hit people hard, and they were following it every day. Now there's baseball to kind of almost distract you from the reality of what's about to happen at the end of September when the last game at the Coliseum is played. I'll tell you this real quick. I just got back from vacation, and oftentimes I wake up in the morning and it's like it hits me out of nowhere. It's almost like the passing of a friend. You're like, I can't believe they're gone. I can't believe this is actually happening. I got back from vacation. I woke up the next morning and I'm like, I had that sick feeling in my stomach. I had mentally detached myself from it while I was away, and it just kind of hits you all over again. So I don't even know that people here in Oakland, I mean, don't get me wrong, they get it. But I don't know that they have grasped the end of this yet.
And you see the things coming out about the last game of the season at the Coliseum and how prices are already getting jacked up. I heard the other day, I think it was a Bark at the Park night, and the water fountains were shut off. It's just tough for me as a Sacramentan, Brody, and I'm preaching to the choir here. The novelty is going to be great that first year. And Sacramento's used to supporting bad teams for a very long time. Obviously, we're a very loyal group. But as you mentioned, it does seem to be a finite situation. But on top of that, I'm just not entirely sure people here are familiar enough with John Fisher to realize exactly what's being brought here, how much of a rat he is as an owner, and what type of way he's going to run this team that's stationed here. It's not like we're getting the Yankees. We're getting a team that's going to almost certainly, unless they catch luck and lightning, going to be one of the worst teams, if not the worst team in baseball for 3 years.
Well, I mean, the commitment to a team and a payroll I was kind of surprised that it didn't happen this offseason. Like, it takes a while. You don't just
Sure.
instantly one winter say, all right, here's $150 million. We're at the
Right.
league median. I mean, the A's are still $100 million below the league median every single season on team payroll. And while you're watching them this year win a few more games, let's remember at what 20-31 is their record right now. That's a pace for about 64 wins, which it's not 50 like it was last year, and it's a little bit better than 60 than it was a couple years ago. But I mean, even if you want to play 500 baseball, that's still almost 20 more wins that you need. And to do that, it's no offense to the Zach Geloffs and the Mason Millers and Shea Langoliers. Those players are good. They're only getting better, but you're going to have to build in reinforcements. And I don't see, with all of the financial complications and unknowns and now playing in a small ballpark, this is a very difficult financial situation for anybody to all of a sudden say, you know what, we're going to Sacramento and now our payroll is going to go up, maybe even incrementally $30 million every year. Like, that's a hard ask for a team that has never really done that before. So to your point, I think that's the money part and the payroll part, beyond anything else, is going to have to be at the forefront. Everybody's going to see how that goes. And it certainly hasn't happened that way yet.
And I guess we'll see with guys like Mason Miller. Are they going to stick around? Is this going to be a sell-off? That's another thing, like Kings fans here. I've explained it before. Imagine if Chris Webber and Vlade and Peja and Doug and De'Aaron and Sabonis were all eventually traded off for draft picks year after year after year. I find myself wondering what your A's are going to do at the deadline this year.
I brought up the fact that Mason Miller could be a trade candidate. People are like, what? He's got so much, team control still, and you're just getting started here. But if you really are the A's and you really are thinking about being good in 2028, when is Mason Miller's value ever going to be higher than it is right now? And he's obviously got a history of arm injuries, and knock on wood, I don't wish that on him or anybody. Sure. But my point is, like, if they flip somebody like him for right now, it's so that they would get 3 more even better players for 2027 or 8 or 9 or whatever that person would be ready. So don't be surprised by anything. Like I said, though, at some point, if this really is their trajectory, like, the baseball team is going to have to get some reinforcements that they certainly haven't had in recent years at all.
The prettiest background in the business, the prettiest voice in the business, the one, the only Brody Brazil, NBC Sports. Covers the Sharks. Wonderful job covering the A's and so much more. Thanks for slumming it, buddy. We appreciate the update, and always welcome here. You take care, and I'm sure we'll be talking quite a bit in the future over this whole situation.
I'll leave this beautiful home studio. I will head across the Bay Bridge, and I have a TV show at noon. Thanks, Dave, for having me on. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Brody. Appreciate you. That is Brody Brazil. You can follow him at Brody. That's BRODIE NBCS. That's at Brody NBCS.